absent any sort of big combo or large X spell. But the preferred play pattern of the Reclamation deck is to get the namesake card into play and then start doing busted things with just a boatload of mana.
Corey's got some very powerful Planeswalkers in this matchup in Teferi, Time Raveler, and Narset, Parter of Veils, 4 copies of each. Elspeth Conquers Death, the Birth of Meletis, some new cards there from Theros Beyond Death. And we can't forget about the big one. They're in a Dream Trawler. That's the win condition, 4 copies there for Corey Baumeister.
Yeah, they finally made a creature good enough to tap out for control decks.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while since we've seen that.
And it's a good blend of unassailability, kind of regardless of opponent, with card advantage for control matchups and a lot of life gain for the beatdown matchups.
Omen of the Sea here for Alex Rubin on Corey's end. It's a powerful new enchantment from Theros Beyond Death. Enters the battlefield, you get to scry 2 and then draw a card. Then you can sacrifice the enchantment a little later on over the course of the game if you'd like to scry 2 once again.
Some shades of Think Twice there, but with the added bonus of playing with Devotion and Enchantments Matter mechanics.
Yeah. And now here is Euro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. So this will resolve. Some life will be gained, a card will be drawn, and the ability to put a land onto the battlefield. A lot, all in just one card. There is the land in Temple of Epiphany. Take a look at the top card on the scry.
Yeah, you're getting about 3 mana worth of stuff just up front, even if you don't do anything special with it. And then later on in the game, it becomes a win condition and another card advantage engine with the escape.
So now Uro is back in the graveyard to be escaped a little bit later on in the game. Baumeister is going to play one of these Planeswalkers, and it's going to be Teferi, Time Raveler. Powerful Planeswalker goes up to 5, and we're going to head back over to Alex Rubin, who will quickly untap those 4 lands and draw a card for his 4th turn of the game, not his 5th, given Uro's acceleration.
The ubiquity of Teferi Time Raveler really did in sort of earlier, more combo-oriented builds of Reclamation strategies. This build is a little bit more able to attack than some of the ones we've seen historically. Brazen Borrower, full play set of those. That helps a lot against Teferi Time Raveler. Uro doesn't really play out that way, but it's at least something that can ostensibly attack. And the deck can play a little bit better on its main phase than it used to be able to.
This will be a Temple of Mystery. Top card will go to the bottom, and now we'll see a Thassa's Intervention. Another new one here from Theros Beyond Death. We'll take a deeper look at this X spell with blue-blue. You get to choose one. Look at the top X cards of your library. Put up to 2 of them into your hand, and then the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Or you can counter target spell unless its controller pays twice of X. A very powerful card in a deck that generates a lot of mana, especially when Wilderness Reclamation is on the battlefield.
And it's another type of piece here where if you're comboing out, great. And if not, it's still a fine functional Magic card. You get a split card of essentially Inspiration or Power Sink. That's not bad just on its face. And anytime that you're saturated with mana, it basically becomes a win condition on its own with the amount of selection that it provides.
Quick look here at our middle seat. That's where our Pioneer match is taking place. Peter Ingram on Dimir Inverter, one of many playing that deck here this weekend. And Nicholas Delvalle, who actually wins game number 1 with Simic Ramp over Dimir Inverter. So, team on the left is taking an early lead as Growth Spiral is resolving here for Alex Rubin. That'll be a Steam Vents and a passing of the turn. Keep in mind with Teferi on the battlefield, Rubin's going to have to play on his main phase, which is exactly where Corey would prefer things to be done. Teferi also does a lovely job of shutting off Wilderness Reclamation as well. So Teferi is going to go down to 3 and draw a card. And you'll see this scoreboard update once again in just a moment. It's Josh Warsaw with Amulet Titan wins game number 1 in Modern over Ely Kassis. So the team of Joshua, Nicholas, and Alex looking to get this one over with pretty quickly, it appears. There's Growth Spiral. There's a Stomping Ground that's entering the battlefield tapped. There's a Forest. Now, previous standard formats and previous takes of Wilderness Reclamation decks, they've had trouble with Teferi basically the entire time, and that does not appear to have changed all that much once again.
No, it's still a problematic card. I think the builds that we see nowadays are a little bit better situated to handle the card. You attack a little bit more than you used to be able to. You can play a regular game of Magic a little bit more than you used to be able to, but it's still trouble. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Not being able to play back against opposing counterspells is an issue for the deck even at a baseline. It's not like the deck is very good against negates and absorbs to begin with. Certainly not being able to set up any sort of counterfight makes that even worse. It really pinches what you're able to do the ceiling of your turns with Wilderness Reclamation, because you can no longer float a lot of mana and then expel someone out at the end of your own turn. And the floor on Teferi is extremely high. I mean, we saw last turn that Baumesiter was able to just draw a card, so he's already kind of gotten his investment back.
Yep.
Teferi's not going anywhere. He can go up to 4. If he wants to next turn, draw a card again. So now he's way ahead. And remains to be seen what Alex's plan is to get this Teferi off the battlefield and or operate around it.
Corey with that Teferi on 4, and yeah, he says, go. All right. Dream Trawler. Tapping out. Alex is going to sacrifice his Omen of the Sea to scry 2.
And that moment right there is why it's worth making cards like Dream Trawler, even though they're very expensive. The play pattern that Baumesiter was, kind of gunning towards here is just making a land drop every single turn and never risking anything, just passing with all his mana up. The upside, if he gets to untap, is huge.
Yep.
Now he has a card advantage engine and a win condition, but he has to cross his fingers and hope nothing too bad happens this turn. And that crossing of the fingers, that willingness to take a risk here, breaks up what otherwise would be a fairly monotonous grind of additional cards.
Well, there is an Expansion Explosion in hand, and a lot of mana is being tapped. So this is an attempt to absolutely destroy this Teferi. That's going to work. So a bunch of cards are going to be drawn here. But if that's Alex Rubin's entire turn, if you're Corey Baumeister, you're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. Rubin's gassed back up and the Teferi's off the battlefield, but now Baumeister kind of is initiating the aggression the following turn. He's going to have all his mana available, full hand of cards, hopefully find some counterspells, and maybe you can handle the leftovers that way. It's not like Rubin is all that good at pushing through a big spell in his own turn, even with a lot of mana and a lot of cards in hand. And Rubin is definitely not getting this Dream Trawler off the battlefield.
No, that's not gonna happen.
That one's good to go.
Now there's another copy of Teferi.
And I think that might have been part of the reason that Baumeister was willing to chance it last turn and tap out. He knows the Dream Trawler is safe, and if Rubin wants to spend his entire turn interacting with Teferi, which is probably the best thing that he can do most of the time, that's fine. You can play a redundant Teferi in your hand. You put Rubin back in the same spot he was in the previous turn, and you still have a lot of mana to interact with any one big spell that Rubin tries to set up.
And Corey's deck isn't one that plays a lot of counter magic, but it plays enough with Absorb.
Well, the big thing here is taking the fear from Baumeister's side is Rubin following up with something impactful backed up by Thassa's intervention, and now that's off the table.
Yep.
So if you had the spare Teferi, you cut off what is Alex's most threatening line the following turn, and basically just have to pass the test of having one counterspell here to stop anything substantial. And Rubin making a play here with Wilderness Reclamation, and I wouldn't be surprised if Baumeister just said, that's fine. There's nothing threatening you can do with a bunch of mana at the end of your own turn until you get Teferi Time Raveler off the battlefield. So I think Baumeister's going to put a premium on protecting Teferi, and anything that Rubin wants to do to sort of set up shop around that doesn't matter all that much.
Makes a lot of sense to me. So Rubin's got his namesake enchantment on the battlefield. The question is, how do we move forward now? Well, there's an Omen of the Sea. And I think that's another card where Corey just says, okay.
Yeah, it has. I think the line here is going to have to be something that threatens Teferi or one of the massive payoff spells. Everything else is pretty innocuous in this space. in previous builds of Team of Reclamation that were enabled by Search for Azcanta, you might have to worry about Wilderness Reclamation even if you had Teferi Time Raveler, because they could find enough spells to overpower. With Castle Vantress as kind of the proxy for that thing, that's fine. There's nothing too threatening to be done with Rubin Scrying. He needs a critical mass of cards to play through this, and Castle Vantress is good for selection, but doesn't provide anything in terms of a mass of cards.
Well, we're going to go back over to Baumeister, who's going to plus his Teferi, it looks like. Maybe he'll go down. He's actually going to go down and bounce a Wilderness Reclamation. Okay. Drew a copy of Omen of the Sea. Corey's hand continues to be very full. And I imagine Corey's hand is full of things that aren't particularly good in the matchup, like Shatter the Sky and the Birth of Meletus and a bunch of other stuff like that. But he does have a copy of Absorb. He is going to draw another card here with Dream Trawler. And look, Teferi continues to be a huge problem for these decks.
Yeah, it's such a security blanket here for Baumeister. He's able here to be fairly aggressive using his mana and developing his board, knowing that there's a ceiling on Rubin's ability to respond. And that ceiling is not very high.
Corey going to play Omen of the Sea, do some scrying and draw a card as well. Dream Trawler is going to get in another big hit here, of course. So now you're going to see Rubin fall down to 5 while Baumeister's at 32. And look, Baumeister's got to make it through one more turn. He crosses the finish line with the Dream Trawler, and that's going to do it. We might see Narset if he has it this turn, and he does. So now he's got this Planeswalker 1-2 punch, right, of Narset and Teferi with 3 mana back to cast Absorb. He feels like he's just got the perfect wall up.
Yeah, he still has 3 mana left over for Absorb, and for Rubin to be able to do anything, he's got to be able to play 2 impactful spells in one turn. And frankly, that seems impossible. The best things that he can do involve casting X spells. And he's so far behind at this point that even a short X spell, let's say he does something for 5 or 6, that still might not be enough to induce an Absorb out of Baumeister. It's got to be more than that. And Rubin is basically capped at playing 1 spell at a time to this Teferi.
And we can't forget as well, as Rubin's going to sacrifice his Open of the Sea to scry too, that Dream Trawler ain't going anywhere.
No. Unassailable, unkillable.
That's just going to be there, given that ability to discard a card and give it hexproof until end of turn.
Yeah, you're looking at 2 copies of Storm's Wrath is maybe the line out of this, but that is the line where Baumeister will use an Absorb. And then that's 8 mana committed, and there's no follow-up for Rubin to have.
Now, what's interesting about Storm's Wrath here is that if this first one resolves, it would kill Teferi, because it deals 4 damage to each creature and each Planeswalker. So if you're Corey Baumeister, do you counter the first one, or do you let the first one resolve and let your Teferi die?
I'm stopping the first one, because if you allow this to resolve, the Teferi's off the battlefield, and now he can use Thassa's Intervention alongside a second copy to push it through.
Sure.
If you absorb this, there's no way Thassa's Intervention works its way into the equation.
Now, here's where things get extra scary. The ability to play Storm's Wrath again, which can clean up Teferi, play Wilderness Reclamation, untap all of your lands, and then go from there.
Yeah, there's a shot here, but I think your Baumeister's exposure to a lot of different sequences goes up the second that Teferi Time Raveler is off of the battlefield. So he has to kind of draw a line there to cut off Thassa's Intervention and maybe other pieces of interaction.
Oh, now this is interesting. We're going to Brazen Borrower away the Teferi. So the Petty Theft half of that card is going to get into things. And now here's Storm's Wrath, and we're going to... All right, we're going to expansion it. That means we're going to copy it and clean everything else up. A play he could not make if Teferi was on the battlefield.
Right. That he needed another piece of the puzzle, but at least Baumeister prevented Thassa's Intervention from working its way into the equation there on that sequence.
So we play on. This is a Teferi. We knew that was in hand. Going to bounce Omen of the Sea, draw a card. Picked up a copy of Elspeth Conquers Death. Did Corey Baumeister. But it is worth mentioning again that Corey's deck only plays those copies of Absorb as counterspells. Not a ton going on there. So now here is Omen of the Sea. Going to scry 2 and then draw a card. Looks like they both go to the bottom. Picked up another copy of Dream Trawler. Can't deploy the powerful Sphinx on this turn, but wouldn't be surprised to see him do it next turn. Just going to play a Hallowed Fountain tapped. Discard a Glass Casket and pass the turn back.
But Rubin has gotten himself out of the worst of it in an immediate sense. He was facing lethal the following turn.
He gets to play.
He's just really down on resources. I mean, you can see his hand is really drained at this point. He has another copy of Brazen Borrower, not worth a whole lot here. A Wilderness Reclamation, but no payoff cards.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a tough game to win, for sure. But Castle Vantress can help, and there are some other tools that can help here. And I think he might be thinking about activating Castle Vantress kind of early on in the turn, perhaps.
Yeah, it might inform how he wants to move forward with resolving a follow-up spell here.
Well, there is Wilderness Reclamation. And it looks like that's clear for takeoff.
It's been a great game so far.
Yeah,
it's been really fun to watch.
All right, well, there's Uro from the graveyard. Forgot that was down there. He's got 5 cards to escape. We'll take a look at the Titan of Nature's Wrath. We're going to exile 5 other cards. We saw it in the early stages of the game. Now we see it now in the late. The 6/6 is on the battlefield. Get to draw a card, play an additional land, gain a little bit more life. Up to 8 goes Alex Rubin. There's a second land for the turn there in Fabled Passage.
I think Rubin's done a really nice job in this game of working his way through just a very challenging spot for this deck historically to play through. Not out of the woods yet, and, you know, Baumeister still has to ferry at the end of the day, but Rubin's at least making it competitive.
Going to main phase that Brazen Borrower because the Teferi that's on the battlefield. Float some mana, do some untapping. And it looks like nothing yet. So Corey's going to sacrifice his Omen of the Sea, scry twice, put them both in the bottom, untap all those lands, keep moving forward. Again, he does have a copy of Dream Trawler in hand. He's going to plus that Teferi up to 2. But what else is he going to do? Here's 2 mana. That'll be a Glass Casket. Target Uro. Okay.
Yeah, want to get that one in exile if at all possible.
Modern Classic players, welcome to round 5. You have 50 minutes.
Is it time to maybe play a land and shrug the shoulders and deploy Dream Trawler? Is my question. He's reaching for a lot of mana right now.
Well, you know, if you put the shields down here, a lot of bad can happen.
There's 6 mana. Okay, so Dream Trawler is going to come on back. Already used the Teferi. Pass the turn back with just a little bit of mana left over. Here comes your Castle Vantress activation on Corey's End Step by Alex. Both those cards go to the bottom of his deck extremely quickly.
I mean, he's on the hunt for, you know, probably just Expansion Explosion, but it's got to be a payoff.
And now we'll get a Castle Vantress activation again. So 1 and 2. And, well, he left them both on top. That's got to be pretty scary for Corey.
Yep.
Brazen Borrower is a nice card at getting you out of some sticky situations. Maybe more importantly is the petty theft half of that card because it can bounce it to Teferi and then let you get back to work.
Really flexible. One of my favorite designs of the last year.
Yeah. A lot of mana here. And this is going to be Gadwick. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards drawn. I'll tell you what, this Team of Reclamation deck has no difficulty getting through itself, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of brain geysers.
Yeah.
It's not short on brain geysers.
No, it is not. There's a land for the turn in Castle Vantris. And now this looks like it's going to be a little Brazen Borrower action with Gadwick coming down to tap the Dream Trawler. So, the Petty Theft bounces the Glass Casket. That means Uro's going to come back. It's going to allow Alex to draw a card, gain 3 more life, up to 11. And this life gain is actually sort of relevant, too, because it's adding more turns to the game for Alex to actually find time to get out of the situation.
Yeah, Rubin was kind of up against the wall a little bit a couple turns ago because Baumeister was threatening lethal. Like, he had to just respond exactly that turn. Now he's given himself a little bit of a cushion to work with, and he's not under any immediate threat, and he's looking at so many cards here. He's drawing some extra cards that if Baumeister wants to draw an extra with Dream Trawler here or there, not really a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Now Teferi's dead. Now Wilderness Reclamation is going to untap all of these lands, and with Teferi being off of the battlefield, that means that, of course, Alex Rubin can play on Corey's turn. So we're going to head back over to Corey Baumeister, who picked up another copy of Omen of the Sea for the draw step, but he's in some serious trouble now, folks.
Yeah, I mean, Baumeister was looking at a lot of extra cards and had a full hand the whole game, even discarded a hand size. But game one, you can see his deck's just got a lot of air in it. He's got a lot of cards that do not really amount to very much in this matchup. A lot of creature removal, and even though Rubin has some creatures in his deck, they're not really critical to him winning the game.
Rubin reaching for some lands here. He's going to hard cast a Brazen Borrower to tap the Dream Trawler via the Gadwick. Glass Casket now taking care of the Gadwick.
Another element that I really like about Dream Trawler is tap effects are better than removal against it.
Yeah.
And it's cool when cards have some of the cards that are some of the best cards in Constructed require different ranges of answers, so it's not super homogenous what you put in your deck. Watching Gadwick and Brazen Borrower create a lot of problems for Baumeister in a way that just a handful of Terminates would not, that's cool.
I think it's good gameplay.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's the good stuff.
Baumeister's starting to reach for some more mana now. Looks like it's going to be 5 of it. Perhaps it's time for Elspeth Conquers Death, the new saga from Theros Beyond Death, which we'll take a look at here. First stage of this saga, exile target permanent opponent controls the converted mana cost 3 or greater. There are some targets on the battlefield. Here's a bunch of mana, however. And we're going to see Thassa's Intervention. That'll take care of it. Corey needed to pay 6 to be able to have that resolve. He's only got 4. And now there's a Castle Vantris activation. Dare I say, I think this game may have gotten entirely away from Corey now.
He's still at 35. He's still got a lot of life to play with.
That's true.
Not clear long-term, how well Rubin can answer a Dream Trawler, but certainly the game has shifted.
Yes.
Really well played by Rubin. He looked like he was kind of out of this thing for a lot of turns. Early Teferi, spells not resolving, having to really struggle to be able to manage the battlefield at all. But managed his resources very well, was able to set up multiple impactful sequences in spite of a Teferi on the other side of the battlefield. And now his position looks solid, north of 50% to be able to get this one.
I think I agree with that percentage. Beatdown's in the air. In for 6. Second main phase here for Alex Rubin. He's already reaching for some lands, just deciding exactly what mana he wants to tap to deploy his next spell. Looks like we'll go back to Uro again. There are cards to exile for escape. Card drawn, expansion, explosion. Here's a scry ×2 with Castle Vantras.
We're still looking for 3 more people to begin our 130 standard challenge. If you'd like to play today's 130 standard challenge, we're still looking for.
And perhaps we're going to see that again. We will.
You can sign up for it.
All right, one on top, one on bottom. Looks like that one's going to stay on top now. Wilderness Reclamation is going to resolve and untap everything. Now here's Omen of the Sea from Corey. He'll take a look at the top 2 cards again and then draw one of them, perhaps, as he scries 2. Splits the difference on the scry. He'll keep that card. Baumesiter is allowed to untap, so we head back his way. Will Dream Trawler ever get the opportunity to attack? Even if it does, it's not lethal with Alex sitting at a cool 14.
Yeah, Uro's pulled him up a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. There's petty theft. Was this one of those times where Corey wants to maybe try to fight back a little bit here?
Well, he might actually just let the unsummon occur,
Okay.
because there's some value in having the Dream Trawler back to block for a turn.
I like this line here from Corey. I think I know what he's setting up. So I think he's going to go with Teferi. Yep, and then this will cause Alex to respond by maybe playing that Brazen Borrower that's on an adventure right now, and then Corey sweeps them all away with Shatter the Sky. I think that might be the game plan here for Corey.
Yeah, but, you know, allowing your Dream Trawler to get unsummoned there has got to set off some alarms from Rubin's side. I doubt he's just going to put all the eggs into the basket.
Well, we're going to find out. There's a bunch of mana that's being tapped here. All right, Thassa's Intervention. Looks like it might be enough to just tap Corey out. Let's see. It's going to be for 5. 5, so that means it's going to be for 10. And Corey's going to fight back with an Absorb. Okay. And now we're going to see a copy of Expansion. Copying it looks like the Absorb, perhaps. Yep. There we go. So now Teferi down. So that plan doesn't work there for Baumesiter. So now he's got to go towards Shatter the Sky. That's going to wipe everything away. So I think that Alex Rubin did a nice job playing around that.
Yeah, no big deal. You get a card for your trouble because of the Uru, and you still have your Brazen Borrower to fire back with.
And the Brazen Borrower is now on the battlefield. So Alex Rubin's going to do some untapping. He'll draw a card. And Uru's the draw. There's a very quick attack for 3 there. Baumesiter, I believe, is going to fall down to 26. And now there's Wilderness Reclamation and an Explosion Expansion. Alex Rubin comes all the way back. Very well played game by that young man. Up a game here
Have
over
you watched
Corey
him before?
Baumesiter. That's my first time watching him play.
That was really nice.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
Yeah. He played a very, very, very good game. Knew exactly what he needed to accomplish to get himself out of that sticky situation. So job well done by him.
Really nice.
Yeah. And his team is now up a match as Nicholas Delvalle, won over Peter Ingram 2-0. Simic Ramp dispatched Demir Inverter. So now, folks, this team of Joshua, Nicholas, and Alex going up against one of the stalwart teams here on the SCG Tour and Team BCW members Eli Kassis, Peter Ingram, and Corey Baumesiter. They are a game win away between both matches of taking this match and keeping their top 8 dreams alive.
And if you're interested in some drama as we get into the last rounds, the thing that you want the most of, teams that are X3 beating teams that are X2.
Absolutely.
That is what's going to open up the possibility of some X3 teams sneaking in.
And pardon me, I said top 8 dreams. I meant top 4 dreams, so my apologies there. As a Thoughtseize is going to whiff, you see a Simic Growth Chamber and a Gemstone Mine in the hand there for Joshua.
An interesting feature of these team tournaments is that as the tournament goes on, there's still only 37 participants, units, that the tournament can pair, and tries to avoid pairing the same teams against each other twice in the same event. So some of the pair downs and pair ups at the ends of tournaments can be pretty wild and gives an opportunity for teams to sneak into the top 4 in the last round where maybe it didn't look good coming into the round.
There is a Gemstone Mine and a passing of the turn, so no problem. Evil Titan off the top there. We're going to see a whir of invention here from Eli Kassis, who's playing Dimir Wurza. He feels as though Urza? Oh, it's not done yet, as there is a Thopter Foundry. So the 1-2 punch of Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek are on the battlefield. And Eli Kassis is untapping, and he will be drawing. And if he does have an Urza, it gets pretty easy from here. And I don't think he has the incredibly powerful blue artifact just yet, so he's going to pass the turn back over to Joshua. Joshua needs Primeval Titan yesterday. Azusa Lost But Seeking is not exactly what the doctor ordered. It's going to resolve. Breeding Pool into the battlefield tapped. We know there's a Simic Growth Chamber left in hand, as is Eli Kassis, so Eli's going to make 4 Thopter tokens on the end step via the sword combo. One of those Thopters will wear the equipment, so one of them will be a 2-3. The rest will be 1-1s as Nick Miller's, plural, are joining the battlefield. Your standard match is starting now. Kassis going to get in here for 4 points of damage. Let's make it 5, actually. Give him a little buff on that Thopter that's wearing Sword of the Meek. And he's going to try to just go about ending the game this way. There's Summoner's Pact. Well, Joshua doesn't look all that confident that's going to resolve. And I wouldn't feel good about it either.
No, this looks like a person with some counter spells.
Kassis is going to go Drown in the Lock to counter that one.
We know that Warsaw's leftovers here are no good.
Yep, just a Simic Growth Chamber in hand. That's it.
Maybe getting one more draw step at it.
You have to imagine Kassis feels comfortable in this matchup if he brought this deck with him. He knows, as there's an Aether Gust, he knows what the players on the SCG Tour like to play in Modern, your Matthew Dilks, your Edgar Magiacious of the world, and it looks like he's found a deck that's pretty darn good against Amulet Titans, because that's the second time I've watched him beat it. This match is all tied up as we head back over to our standard match in time. Folks, is going to become of the essence now, especially for Corey Baumeister, who is down a game, and we're looking at about 17 minutes here left to go in the match.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, Baumeister, very hard for him to win 2 games inside of time here. The upshot, though, for Baumeister is if he can get this game, a draw is probably as good as a win in this position. If you're looking at X and 3 being the bubble, you kind of have one to give.
Okay.
A loss is catastrophic. Then you might not even be out of top 4 contention right now. A draw, if we think that an X and 3 might sneak in, the next 2 and 1 is not a bad spot to be in.
Absolutely. At the very least, we know this. Baumeister's got to focus on winning this game in front of him.
No question, yep. And how fast can his deck even win?
Here is a Temple of Enlightenment. Well, these blue-white decks, they're not the best at closing games out. And Dream Trawler is incredibly powerful at cementing an advantage, but winning the game all that quickly, not the best at it. And he's not sideboarding in any additional creatures to close games out with very quickly either. He's just got more reactive permission. Some of it is proactive, I suppose, but permission nonetheless in the sideboard.
And Rubin has 3 copies of Mystical Dispute in his sideboard, which makes it even harder to just push through a Dream Trawler and try to win the game fast.
Aether Gust. It's going to go after Uro. Uro. To the bottom. Steam Vents. And a battlefield untapped. And we're going to head back over to Corey B. Dovin's Veto the draw. There are some very powerful cards that Corey has access to in his sideboard that you can see on Cardboard Live, but we're also looking at in front of us. Ether Gust you just saw on that Euro. Dovin's Veto was Corey's draw step. Mystical Disputes in the sideboard for him as well. And this one's a real doozy too. In Narset, Parter of Veils. Quick question here for Alex, as he'll call over a judge and actually take a step away from the table.
Players in Pioneer Classic, welcome to round 5. You have 50 minutes. You may begin.
So while he's working on his question for the judge, we want to work on where you can find Corey Baumeister sometimes, and that's on Star City Games Premium, folks, alongside Sheldon Menery, Jerry Thompson, Emma Handy, and Pro Tour millionaire, bazillionaire,
Thousandaire.
yeah, Paulo Vitor Dominorosa.
Congratulations.
The winningest Magic player of all time, just top forward Pro Tour Brussels this weekend. So congratulations to Paulo. Players Tour Brussels. StarCityGames.com/join-premium is where you can get access to their great articles, as well as 5% off of sealed products, 10% off of singles, and 15% off of supplies. Only $7.99 a month. Be sure to sign up and get access to all that exclusive content and fantastic deals on sealed products, singles, and supplies. Alex Rubin will be returning to the table here in just a moment, but for the team of Eli Kassis, Peter Ingram, and Corey Baumeister, they are a very good one, to be sure. Did very, very well at SCG Columbus earlier this year. Did members of Team BCW. Baumeister on the leaderboard this year, doing incredibly well, as it looks like he's going to play a lot more Magic on the SCG Tour this year now that he lives in Roanoke, Virginia.
He's out of the base of operations.
Yeah. He's making versus video content with Ross Merriam, traveling tournaments with him too. And you see for Corey, second place right now on our season leaderboard here. Baumeister with 35 points, Will Pulliam with 35 as well. Edgar Magayesh, he's leading the pack through only 2 events here and about a month's worth of events, as we are now in February 2nd here today. Aaron Barrich, winner of SCG Knoxville, and at the very tippy top of the standings here this weekend. We may be seeing her in top 4, along with Daryl Ayers, Matthew Dilks, Zach Allen, Harlan Free. That rounds out our top 8 there, partner.
Very star-studded top 8
Yeah.
early on here.
Really, really is.
I'm sure Baumeister would love to get to the Players' Championship this year.
I think that's a goal of his. I know Corey is very much focused on creating great Magic content. He loves doing it between his Versus Live videos, his Magic Online videos, streaming, and all that stuff. But I think people sometimes forget that he is one of the best Magic players in the world. Wow, look at that photo.
Yeah. There you go. Seems so nice that he seems so nice that it must be performative, but he's just from North Dakota with 2 Opens played in 2019, a top 8 and a win. Not really that much to show for it, but in playing that many events, I'm sure 2020 will be quite a bit different. All time, 3 top 8s and an Open win. No invitational success just yet. But again, Baumeister's resume, a little light on the SCG Tour, has not really grinded the circuit in the past. But this year, I think he's going to be going at it.
Yeah, and he's got a heck of a Grand Prix resume underneath his belt. So if you know Corey Baumeister at all, you know that he is, he's pretty darn good at this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that much. And to see his team's record be 10-2, not much of a surprise. So play will resume now. This is Athasa's intervention going after Narset. And will Corey fight back?
Well, it's interesting here post-board because there's spots here where Baumeister can push through. Dovin's Veto is very helpful. The question is, how much risk are you willing to expose yourself to on the way back? If you get a Narset on the battlefield, it naturally caps how bad Expansion and Explosion could be for you because you can't draw all that many cards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a bad spot to put the shields down just a little bit.
All right, Narset's going to tick on down. I think Absorb is probably going to be the selection, though. Corey's going to consult his hand first very quickly, and he will select the Absorb. So Eli Kassis is on Corey's left, Peter Ingram on his right. Helping their teammate out, as they know this match is very important. We're underneath 14 minutes now. Tick-tock goes that clock.
11 a.m. Modern Challenge players. Your next grand pairings are being posted. 11 a.m. Modern
Temple of Abandon. Trigger, take a look. Scry, top card becomes the bottom. And Alex will pass the turn back. So Corey's Narset's still on the battlefield. Who's going to tick that down maybe to 1? Yes, he will. Take a look at the top couple of cards once again, see what card he does want to take. He'll go with a Teferi Time Raveler. We know how good that card is in this matchup. There is a land. 6 mana is a nice little flashpoint here for Baumeister, able to pay for a card like Mystical Dispute if it does show up right now.
And we know the line that's been set up here before, the Teferi plus the Absorb also available here.
Mm-hmm. So here is Thassa's Intervention. Gonna have to pay 4 to resolve that card. Corey is just going to let the Teferi leave the battlefield. Now we will see Omen of the Sea sacrificed. Scry 2 here for Alex. He's going to split the difference on the Scry. So 1 on top, 1 on bottom. He knows his draw step. We'll see it here in just a moment, I hope. Didn't get a great one. He does have a copy of Expansion Explosion in hand.
Doesn't really want to do very much with that for the time being, with Baumeister having Absorb mana up and the Narset on the battlefield preventing a Brain Geyser.
Here is 4 mana. This will be Euro. Looks like Corey may be fighting over this one, and he will. It's going to be Ether Gust. Well, that's a tough one there. Well, it looks like maybe another copy of Thassa's Intervention is in hand here for Alex Rubin. Thassa's Intervention has actually looked quite darn good here.
Yeah. I mean, the drawback of the card is in a matchup where your life total is under pressure, it's just not that efficient. But if you have the breathing space just to make your land drops powerful and flexible.
All right, 3 mana. There's Thassa's Intervention. Gotta pay 2. Can't. So now Euro is going to resolve. Additional land. Can't draw the additional card because of the Narset. And now there is a castle, I believe. Yeah, Castle Ardenvale, 5 mana. Time Wipe. Get out of here. Baumeister going to pass the turn back with Dovin's Veto at the ready. So now he just needs to find a way to win the game because he's got a pretty good hold on it now.
Got the castle.
Mm-hmm. Well,
slow and steady.
That's right. If you don't care about the clock, Castle can do it. Little outpost style card. We're going to see a activation of Castle Vantress here. See what Alex wants to do with the Scry. Looks like he's keeping both on top.
Quite a bit better than Kjeldorn Outpost.
Duh. Thank you.
Well, Outpost was a certified banger back in the day.
Yeah, well, it's 2020 now, not 1995.
You'd have to ban that thing in 1995.
There is a Thassa. Excuse me, Omen of the Sea. Thassa on the picture. Pardon me.
2020, it's like, do I play 1 or 0?
Yeah.
1995 was like,
I'm going to play 4 or 5.
4, or do I cheat
Yeah.
and play 5?
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of people cheated.
Yeah. Come on.
I was there.
You
Dang, here we
Shaheen
go.
Sarani on the battlefield, making a 1/1 white human creature token. In for 1.
With a flourish.
Yes. Slow and steady wins the race.
Shaheen would be proud.
I know he would be. Now there is another Narset, Parter of the Veils. 110 minutes in the match now. Baumeister trying to play catch-up. Looks like that's going to resolve. It's on 5. It's going down to 3. Take a look. What's Baumeister find? Absorb. Pretty good one. Baumeister passed the turn back. Here is Omen of the Sea here for Alex Rubin, so he'll scry 2.
Gotta do it.
He found a copy of Niv Mizzet, folks.
Gotta do it at the end step here. because he cannot draw the additional card on his own turn.
Mm-hmm. This is a Fry. Goodbye, Narset. And now a castle activation. All right. Now, I think some of us have forgotten just how powerful of a card Niv Mizzet Perun is. This thing is no joke. First of all, you can't absorb that, bro. Sorry about that whammy.
Mm-hmm.
5/5 flyer. Whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. So you better, and I'm talking about Corey Baumeister, you better find a way to get this off the battlefield right now. That's a way to do it. Elspeth going to look to conquer some death. And that's whenever he casts an instant or sorcery spell. So Elspeth Conquers Deck is a very clean answer to that dragon.
The perfect answer.
Oh, yeah. Scry 2.
And the Shaheen token trucks in yet again.
A lot of mana here. Gadwick. Okay. Baumeister is going to go with Mystical Dispute. Expansion Explosion is going to copy Mystical Dispute and counter it. So Gadwick is in. It's going to draw a couple of cards. There's a Temple of Epiphany. Top card stays on top. Baumeister's in some trouble here, folks. Alex Rubin has played a very nice match of Magic. Never seen him before, but would be happy to see him again. He knows what he's doing with this deck. That's for sure.
The back and forth here of players risking it and then the other person trying to respond with some sort of haymaker, it's been really fun to watch.
There's a Shaheen token. A 1/1 human has been made by Castle Arden Vale. Elspeth Conquers Death. That saga will go to Chapter 3. This means that Baumeister is going to have the opportunity to return a target creature or planeswalker card from his graveyard to the battlefield and put an additional +1/+1 counter or loyalty counter onto it. This will be a growth spiral in response to Elspeth Conquers Death targeting Teferi. Now Teferi's on the battlefield. Starts on 5. And down to 2. See you later, Gadwick. Draw a card.
Not typically the one you want to be unsummoning.
Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, partner.
Get that hit in.
That's right.
It's 2 more.
Castle Vantress activation. Looks like cards are headed to the bottom. We're going to untap all those lands and draw a card. Alex Rubin's got plenty of mana to work with. Quite a few cards in hand as well. We know the Gadwick's in hand. You see the copy of Fry. Asks his teammates, you cool with me casting this on that Teferi? The answer is yes. It's uncounterable after all. So Teferi is going to leave the battlefield. This is a lot of mana. He says, I want to do it for 1 less in case you got Mystical Dispute. So Absorb is going to target Gadwick. Let's have a counter war. Expansion is going to target Absorb.
Baumeister is pretty well set up to fight this fight.
Mm-hmm. It's just how much does he want to fight it?
Well,
and
also,
he's got to decide pretty quickly, I'd say.
It's Veto versus Absorb, too. I kind of want to keep the hard counter back for a creature.
Well, there is the Veto. And now here is Omen of the Sea. Untapping and drawing. And beaten down. Put you down to 16. The follow-up, we're going to go On a Dream.
There we go. That's the card that can get this game over in time here from Baumeister's side.
That's right. Alex Rubin has fought back against this before, however. We saw him do it in game number 1. Can he do it again here in game 2 to get the W for his team?
The problem is the wall of counter spells is really up on Baumeister's side. I think he has at least 1 Absorb and 1 Dovin's Veto left over.
I believe that is correct there, partner. Let's see what we got here. It's going to be Gadwick again, or at least an attempt. Will Corey fight over this card? How much does he care?
I mean, at this point, probably not a whole lot. It's a couple cards, but the counter spells here should be good. I guess there's the concern about the Gadwick slowing down the clock here. If you're worried about time, you want to pick a fight.
Absorb will be negated. Gadwick is in. A couple of cards will be drawn. Wilderness Reclamation is the last card in hand, but we're going to go with a Euro. Maybe. Not sure the teammates agree. Thought about going to Euro. Looks like we're going to go to Wilderness Reclamation instead. Slide that through. Steam Vents is the land. Untap them all. No Teferi on the battlefield. Okay. So, Baumeister will untap. He will draw.
And Baumeister's down just to Dovin's Veto. 2 lands in hand.
Not a great hand. Here's a blue card in Omen of the Sea. That's going to shut down the Dream Trawler.
I am walking, whatever the outcome is, I am walking away from this match very impressed with Alex Rubin.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there, partner. He's played a very, very good match against a very, very good player. Because now he's going to activate Castle Vantress. One thing you can notice about these Teamer Reclamation decks, at least this version of it, no difficulty finding what it's looking for between Gadwick, Expansion Explosion, Castle Vantress, Omen of the Sea. You're going to find what you're looking for. Can't forget about Euro as well. That one draws cards, gains life, and helps you accelerate.
And I mean, both of these games were looking very good for Baumeister at various points, too.
Now here's another copy of Wilderness Reclamation. That's in there. Well, well, well. Reclamation. We're going to float some mana. Going to float 5 of it. See, there's 2 minutes left in the match. Looks like we're going to go towards Castle Vantress instead of loading up for a big Expansion Explosion. Not in a rush. Makes a lot of sense to me. Baumeister. He got anything to do? He's going to crack this one here. He'll tap a bunch of mana. Make another Shaheen Sarani human token. Untap and draw. Looks like he may have picked up a copy of Teferi, so he's going to lead out there. This one's worth fighting over. Here's a Growth Spiral in response. Looking to tap down that Dream Trawler with a Gadwick trigger. That's going to work just fine. A lot of blue spells in this Team of Reclamation deck. No surprise there. So once Dream Trawler's in the battlefield, once Gadwick's on the battlefield, Dream Trawler is kind of handled.
It's really fun to watch Rubin here. He can't really directly answer Dream Trawler, but he's been able to manage it in a bunch of sideways ways over the course of these 2 games.
And what's been really interesting about this game, oftentimes we're watching a third game unfold to see who's going to be the winner of the game and match. This one's so interesting because it's the second game. It's 1-1 as far as the match is concerned. And if Alex Rubin is able to hold on and not die, he wins the match for his team. If Corey's able to come back and win this one in time, as you mentioned, a draw is pretty darn good for a team that's 10-2.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably you're looking at a win in the next round. They would sign up for a draw for sure.
Absolutely they would. And they don't have much time to get to it, folks. Under 30 seconds. Now, Gadwick is solved as far as a problem is concerned. Then you're going to see Omen of the Sea get cracked. A little Scry, too.
Yeah, but 19's a long way to go, even if the Dream Trawler is left unchecked.
Don't forget about those little Shaheens out there.
Who could?
Yeah.
And that is time. Corey's going to get 3 combat steps.
He will. Corey Baumeister will be turns 1, 3, and 5, while Alex Rubin will be turn 0, which is what we're on right now, along with turns 2 and 4. Getting to the nitty-gritty here in this round at number 13 from Richmond. All right. There's your attack. Pretty easy block.
That's going to pull up Rubin to 22 now.
That card's a hoot, isn't it?
It's a lot. A lot of stuff.
Don't forget. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get that trigger where you get the game 3 life draw card, then you can play additional land. That is a lot.
So just a lot.
It's a good thing it doesn't trample. Whew. Looks like petty theft is working its way into the equation now. Baumeister wants to take a little look. Is Corey going to counter this one or not? He's going to go with Dovin's veto. All right.
This might just be setting up a lethal expansion.
Yeah, that's what I think we're about to
see
see now, because petty theft is going to bounce that to Teferi. Corey's only got the 1 mana, and so long as Alex Rubin plays around Mystical Dispute, that's 4 mana floating, so that's just to cast the expansion. Excuse me, the explosion, not the expansion. Now he's going to count up all of his mana. So 13, 26, Kapah! With some amount of mana floating, I hope.
Gotta check to see if he's not decked out.
Yep. That is a good question. That's going to do it. Alex Rubin going to win this game and match here for him and his team.